My name is Harper Dawson, a 8-year-old nurse. I grew up believing that family meant fairness, love, and equal treatment. But my story showed me how quickly family can become the first to betray you, and how one man, my fiancé, could step in and change everything. The wedding fund promise. My dad always told me, Harper, when the time comes, your wedding fund will be ready. I've been saving since the day you were born. It was something I grew up hearing my entire life. Not once, not twice, but dozens of times over the years, it became a symbol of love, security, a promise that my father believed in me. I grew up in a house that always smelled like lemon cleaner and old carpet, the kind that never quite dried after a long winter. My father's clock shop sat right below our living room, its steady ticking seeping through the floorboards like a second heartbeat. When I was 10, he placed a small wooden box in my hands, running his thumb over the carved lid. "This is for your dreams, Harper," he whispered. "When you get married, I'll open it." I held onto that box like hope itself, not knowing it would one day become a wound. Dinner times were the earliest signs, though I didn't understand them back then. Valerie, my mother, always served Lila first. Extra chicken, extra mashed potatoes, extra smiles. When I reached for the salt, she'd swat my hand gently. "Let your sister have what she needs." I used to swallow the sting and focus on the soft glow of the kitchen light instead, convincing myself it didn't matter. But it carved deeper than I thought. There was the school assembly when I won a writing award. I remember standing on stage, scanning the crowd. Mom was fixing Lila's hair. Dad was tying her shoelace. Neither saw me receive the certificate. Lila got flowers afterward, even though she hadn't won a thing. "She had a rough week," Mom said. "Be nice." I nodded, pretending I didn't feel my chest fold inward. I didn't know it then. But these tiny moments, the forgotten glances, the uneven plates, the quiet dismissals were building toward something much bigger. Something that would cut far deeper than a missed applause or a stolen spotlight. The older we got, the clearer the pattern became. When I turned 16, I took a job at a small diner off Highway 12. Greasy apron, ringing bell, burnt coffee smell. Every shift felt like survival. I saved every tip in an envelope under my mattress. One morning, the envelope was gone. Mom just shrugged. Lila needed spending money for her senior trip. "You're the responsible one. You'll earn it back." My throat tightened so hard I could barely breathe, but I nodded. Back then, I thought love meant enduring whatever was asked of me. Holidays were no different. One Christmas, snow piled up against the porch windows, and the house glowed warm under cheap string lights. Lila tore open a new laptop, squealing. I unwrapped a pair of wool socks and a used paperback. Dad ruffled my hair. "You like practical things, sweetheart." I forced a smile even as the air tasted like salt and disappointment. I didn't know it, but each holiday carved its own small fracture into me. College should have changed something, but it didn't. I went to a state school on loans. Lila got a private university with tuition handled. When I visited home one weekend, I overheard Mom on the phone saying, "Harper's fine. She's always fine. Lila needs us more." I stood in the hallway, cold creeping up my spine, wondering how long they'd been justifying the imbalance. Even after I moved out, the dynamic stayed the same. Birthdays forgotten, promises delayed, plans canceled because Lila has something important. It became the quiet rhythm of my life, a constant low hum of being second place. I didn't know it then, but the years of small betrayals were preparing me for the blow that would finally break everything, the one wrapped in a crisp letter with my name printed on it. The first crack came on a quiet Sunday morning. I was folding laundry in my apartment, the dryer humming softly, when Lila posted a photo online, her hand flaunting a diamond ring big enough to catch sunlight even through a screen. Her caption read, Some of us are meant for beautiful things. I stared at it. Heat crawling up my neck. Ethan leaned over my shoulder. You okay? He asked. I lied and said yes. But something in that post scraped old wounds open. 2 weeks later, we met the Whitmores for dinner. The restaurant was too bright, too polished, filled with people who never worried about bills. Chase's mother barely looked at me before turning to Ethan. You work in tech. Right. I assume you'll be helping the Dawson family with the wedding expenses. It wasn't a question. It was a declaration. Ethan's jaw tightened. I felt a cold wave rush through me like suddenly I wasn't a fiancé. Just a wallet, someone married into the family. When the menus closed, Lila leaned in with a sugary smile. Harper, I know you and Ethan don't love big weddings. So, maybe you two can keep yours simple. Mine will sort of set the tone for the family. I blinked at her. Set the tone, she shrugged. Well, yeah. Not everyone needs a grand ceremony. Her voice was sweet. Her eyes were knives. That familiar sting rose in my chest again, bitter and metallic. A few days later, I stopped by my parents' house to return a baking dish. The living room was filled with swatches of fabric, mood boards, price lists. Valerie didn't hear me at first. She was on the phone, whispering sharply. We have to help Lila. If this wedding isn't perfect, the Whitmores will think we're cheap. My heartbeat thudded loud enough to drown out the ticking clocks. When she noticed me, her smile snapped into place. Oh, Harper, didn't hear you come in. I just nodded, pretending I didn't feel the same old ache settle in my ribs. Then came the night everything shifted. I walked into the kitchen looking for Dad and heard him talking quietly to Mom. We'll figure it out, he murmured. Harper has savings. She always does. My breath caught. My name. My money. Spoken like an asset they were entitled to. I stepped back before they saw me. Hands trembling. Throat burning with a truth I didn't want to face. This time, the hurt didn't fade. It lodged itself somewhere deep, sharp and unmoving. A few days later, a letter arrived in my mailbox thick. Official. The kind that carries bad news. I sliced it open absent-mindedly, expecting insurance paperwork. Instead, my eyes landed on the bold print notice of late payment. Loan account ending in 4,812. My name was on it. My social security number. But a loan I had never taken. The room tilted. Ethan found me gripping the countertop. Knuckles white. Harper. What is it? He asked. I handed him the letter. Unable to speak. His face darkened. This isn't your loan. My voice barely came out. I think my parents used my name. Saying it felt like swallowing glass. I went to confront them that evening. But before I even stepped inside, I heard laughter Lila's shrill cackle echoing through the hallway. Dad. The venue said the deposit cleared. Thank God. If this wedding falls apart, I'll actually die. My stomach twisted. Deposit. Cleared. Using my name. When I walked in, Dad looked startled. Then guilty. Harper. Sweetheart, I cut him off. Why is there a loan in my name? The room froze. Valerie set down her wine glass, her smile tightening. Don't be dramatic. We needed help. Lila's wedding is important. My chest burned. You stole from me. Dad rubbed his forehead. We didn't steal. We borrowed. You're stable. You can handle it. And just like that, my worst fear that I was only valuable when I could be used was confirmed. The next blow came from Aunt Meredith. She asked to meet at a small church basement after Sunday service, her voice trembling on the phone. When she arrived, she held my hand with cold fingers. Harper, your father, he used your wedding fund years ago. To cover his business debts, the box was just a symbol he tried to keep. My breath left my body in a single, shattering exhale. The wooden box from my childhood flashed in my mind, hope disguised as a lie. He didn't want you to hate him. she whispered. But the betrayal felt bone deep. Not long after, Lila posted another dig online, a photo of her dress fitting. Captioned, "Some of us have families who actually show up for us." My phone buzzed with notifications. A burn crawled down my throat. She knew exactly what she was doing. The last straw came when Ethan overheard my parents talking on speakerphone. Valerie said, "Ethan makes good money. He should want to help. If he loves Harper, he'll step up." Ethan met my eyes, hurt simmering beneath the surface. "They don't see you," he said quietly. "They see what they can take." Something inside me finally cracked, not cleanly this time, but like shattered glass scattering everywhere. I knew the fall was coming. I just didn't know how violent the impact would be. The night of Lila's rehearsal dinner felt wrong from the moment I stepped out of the car. The banquet hall rose from the dark like a glass palace, its windows glowing gold against the fall night. Inside, the air smelled of champagne and lilies too sweet, too polished, like it was trying to hide something rotten underneath. Ethan squeezed my hand. "You don't have to do this alone," he murmured. I nodded, though my pulse hammered so hard it blurred my vision. When we walked in, every Dawson and every Whitmore turned toward us. Lila stood in the center of the room in a white rehearsal dress, sparkling under the chandelier. She smiled at me, slow and poisonous. "You made it," she said. "I was worried you'd bail." Again, her eyes flicked to Ethan like she was daring him to react. He didn't, but his jaw clenched. Behind her, my parents hovered nervously, whispering to each other. Richard wouldn't meet my eyes. Valerie smoothed her dress over and over, like she could iron out the truth if she just kept moving. Dinner should have started, but the Whitmores were restless. Chase's mother tapped her diamond bracelet against her glass. An impatient rhythm. "Before we begin," she said, "we'd like clarification on the remaining family contribution. We were told additional funds were coming today." Her gaze sliced toward my father. Richard cleared his throat, sweat glistening at his temple. We're handling it," he said. His voice cracked. I felt the room tightening around him, around all of us. Lila turned toward me, arms crossed. "You could stop making this difficult. Harper, just help. It's one loan." "You're acting like someone who was robbed," I interrupted, my tone flat. A ripple of shock moved through the tables. Lila blinked, thrown off. "Don't play victim," she snapped. "This wedding is important." I pulled out the envelope I'd been carrying all night. My hands didn't shake, not this time. "You want important," I said, stepping forward. "Let's talk about important." I laid the documents on the table one by one. The loan notice, the bank statements, the emails between my parents and the Whitmores, and finally, the flash drive Meredith had given me. The room fell silent, except for the soft hiss of the air vents. Chase's father picked up the papers, his face darkening with each line. "This loan is in Harper's name," he muttered. "And this email, Richard, you promised $50,000. Is this accurate?" His voice boomed across the room. My father's shoulders collapsed. He looked small, smaller than I'd ever seen him. I meant to fix it," he whispered. Valerie stepped forward, her voice sharp. "It's not as bad as it looks. Harper has savings. She's stable." The words sliced through me like ice. Even now, even here, she believed I existed to patch their lies. Ethan stepped closer, voice low but steady. "She doesn't owe you a cent." Lila let out a hysterical laugh. "Oh, please. You're acting like saints. Harper's always been dramatic. This is just paperwork." "It's fraud," I said quietly. "In my name." Gasps rippled through the room. My chest tightened, but not from fear this time. It was clarity. Cold, precise clarity. Chase's mother stood abruptly. "If this is true, this wedding cannot proceed." What? Lila shrieked. "No, they're lying. Chase turned to her, expression drained of all warmth. Did you know about this? Lila hesitated 1 second too long. It was enough. If you walk away, she spat at me, you'll regret it. You're ruining my life. I stepped closer, my voice barely above a whisper. You ruined your own life when you decided mine didn't matter. The chandelier light glinted off the silver bracelet on my wrist, the old gift from the father who once promised dreams. For a moment, I almost felt grief. Then it passed. I gathered the papers, slid them back into the envelope, and turned away as the room erupted behind me, voices clashing, chairs scraping, Lila screaming my name like a curse. Ethan opened the door for me. The cold night air hit my skin like a baptism. Behind us, my family fell apart. Ahead of me, something new waited, something quiet, controlled, and entirely mine. The parking lot was quiet when we stepped outside, the echoes of shouting still leaking through the banquet hall windows like smoke from a burning house. I stood there for a moment, letting the cold air settle into my lungs. It felt cleaner than anything I'd breathed in years. Ethan wrapped his coat around my shoulders, but he didn't speak. He didn't have to. He knew this wasn't just the end of a dinner, it was the end of a lifetime of swallowing my own pain. When we got home, I placed the envelope of documents on the kitchen table. Under the harsh overhead light, it looked almost innocent. Just papers, just ink. But it held my entire history with my family, every lie, every borrowed dream, every quiet expectation that I would fix what they broke. I traced the edges of the stack with my finger, then slid the flash drive on top. Meredith's voice echoed from memory. Your father didn't want you to hate him. But what he feared had already happened long before tonight. Ethan sat across from me, elbows on the table. What now? He asked gently. I looked down at the documents. Evidence. Proof. A story no longer trapped in whispers behind closed doors. Now, I said, my voice steady, surprising even myself. Now I decide what their truth is worth. Because the Whitmores weren't the only ones who deserved to know. The bank, the authorities, the friends who always wondered why I kept my distance. And maybe, just maybe, the version of me who once believed that love meant sacrifice. They thought tonight was my collapse. They were wrong. They had handed me the one thing they never meant to give me, the power to choose the ending.